Hello, everybody. So, I'm back at the Civic Center. It's a rainy, cold night. Actually, I just filmed like a hour-long segment that I was meant to talk about a bunch of topics that I had written down, and I talked about making the segment shorter. I kind of went off the top of the head with that one. Ended up talking in detail about trust and went into a documentary that I had watched about CIA and like decision making and some other things. So that's about an hour long, but I didn't actually touch on any of the stuff that I originally wanted to talk about. I have obviously taken some time off from doing the videos, so I had a lot of stuff built up that I want to talk about. But I think what I'm going to do is just try to do a short introduction video before that one, that I just talk about a couple quick things, and then I'll leave the bulk of it for tomorrow's video. So yeah, this shouldn't be too long. I say that and I always end up rambling, but I'm going to try to keep this one as short as I can. And I'll start off with trying not to repeat myself from what I had already said in the last one. So let me start off with the announcements. I'm back to painting and writing and putting some stuff back on Facebook, get back to the grind, continue to get my story out there in different ways. So I posted 2 paintings that were part of the collaboration, Dad and Daughter Designs, that I used to do with my daughter, who, on a side note, she's got like 6 days of school left, and she will be spending the first couple weeks of June with her mom, but I'll finally get to see her again on Father's Day. She ended up having her recital on Sunday, like I had talked about. I haven't gotten the video yet, but when we talked on Sunday night, she did her dance routine for me. It was to the Zombies song. If anybody's familiar with the Zombies movie, the original Cheer song that the Cheer tryouts fired up, I think it was called. So I played it on my phone and she did her routine. So obviously not as good as being there in person, but I still got to see her do her routine and had a chance to talk to her. So looking forward to getting to spend some time over the summer with her and talk to her tonight about how I can't wait to do art with her when we hang out, which she was in agreement about, saying we have to come up with some cool new designs. So I already got the supplies for that stuff ready to go. But in the meantime, I had shared a lot of my personal artwork and stuff that related to the nonprofits, like logos and things like that. But it's been a while since I shared the stuff that me and her did together. So the next few days, I was thinking I would do some brief background stories about those and probably post like 1 or 2 a day just to show what me and her spent a lot of our time on. When supposedly we didn't do anything together, but the evidence would suggest otherwise. Like, we produced a tremendous amount of projects together. So, I'm just going to continue to share that stuff with you. The first one that I posted today was called The Spirit of the Rainbow Forest. So I just talk, and I think I probably posted all of these at some point, but without the background stories that go with it, which I like to do, have fun with and be creative with. I go into a little bit of detail on the symbolism and like what the painting actually means to me and Riley, and how we ended up coming up with the designs and things like that. So, I don't know, part of my message and really like life path moving forward, I've always had a good bond and connection with kids, and like trying to pull out their creativity, and whether it's building forts or just like playing on their level, like not being the super serious adult all the time. I think not enough grown-ups actually turn off that grown-up mode and encourage their kids to actually use their imagination. So that was obviously supporting her with her passion for painting, which I've talked about, ended up getting me passionate about painting, and discovering my own creative side was a direct result of just trying to support her. So my hope is that maybe it inspires some of the parents out there to just turn off the devices and spend a little bit of time like just doing more arts and crafts and things like that with your kids, and see what you guys create. I know it was like Riley's favorite thing to do, so I didn't have that growing up, and it definitely has become an outlet of mine. I think a lot of kids probably didn't spend enough time doing that stuff when we were younger, so they don't even know what they're capable of. But just try it, you know? You actually might enjoy it. So, yeah, the first one is The Spirit of the Rainbow Forest, which some of you might recognize. It was in my hotel room when I was doing the videos in there. And then the other one is called Open the Box and Bloom, which is a rainbow flower that is also like a, depending on how you look at it, it's kind of like an optical illusion that if you tilt it a certain way, it actually is like an open box. I always talk about not being stuck inside a box. So yeah, like always, there's more to everything that I do than just what meets the eye. There's always layers of the onion, if you will. So, yeah, just wanted to briefly talk about that stuff, and that I'm working on some. I have like 2 or 3 paintings that I've worked on over the last couple of weeks that are getting pretty close to me finishing up. I still have a ton that I haven't posted and shared stories on. At some point, like, I plan on doing it for all of my artwork, but I do have some new stuff that will be that I'll be finishing up soon. So looking forward to sharing that stuff once I get those finished. Hopefully in the next week. And then I typically don't watch movies or shows or TV anymore. I used to, back in the day, always watch like a ton of sports and stuff, but now I guess I'm usually just learning documentaries and podcasts and things just most people would find boring. But last night I came across on YouTube that Get Out was on there for free, and I had only seen it once. I think maybe in the movie theater. So it'd been a while, but I remember it being like really good, that I really enjoyed it. So last night I put that on and watched it, and so I plan on talking about that and 2 other movies, all that have to do with mind control and hypnosis, and or just something to do with like the conscious and subconscious, and gets you thinking of just like the thought process in the brain and how susceptible we are to suggestion and things like that. But I would assume most people have seen Get Out. There are some things I actually forgot about it. Like, I did forget that ultimately the people that they hypnotized, like the black people that they hypnotized, were basically like the family members or their friends wanting to experience the world from a different point of view, like the genetics of, you know, a black person, the being stronger and in the case of the main character, I forgot that the guy who bid on him and was going to do the dad, his girlfriend's dad was a neurosurgeon and was going to basically like transplant his part of the brain into the blind guy who owned a photo gallery. The main character was a photographer and apparently had like this great eye for taking these photos. And the guy who owned the photo gallery, who ended up going blind, had talked about his own failures as a photographer before he went blind and how he just never had the eye for it. So he ended up bidding on the main character so that he could basically like be him and have his eye for photography and actually see things the way that he saw them, which is a really interesting like twist to everything. It was a horror movie and psychological thriller. But I'm fascinated with psychology and stuff, like the idea of, there's a lot of themes in that movie. Just like the grandma was the maid and the grandfather was the groundskeeper. So they basically like stayed young in these other people's bodies, while those people got hypnotized and went into what the mom called the sunken place. So they like existed in like the deepest levels of the subconscious. So they were like in there, but just like barely in there. And his flash of the camera actually like snapped them out of it. But otherwise they were 100% under mind control. And yeah, it just makes you wonder how far-fetched is it? Like, not to that level that they were like completely different people and in like a complete trance, but at times like not that far off when you look around how people live their lives and go through it. Like, sometimes I wonder if people really are just under that spell. Like, I've talked about it from the viewpoint of spiritual warfare and magic and things like that. But there is none of that involved in this. This was just like the mom being a psychologist who hypnotized somebody with the spoon of her teacup, and then the dad being the neurosurgeon and doing like the transplants and stuff. It's like art imitating real life. Talking about the CIA and MK Ultra and lobotomies and all the stuff they used to do. Like, yeah, I think every movie we watch is a lot more truth in there than we think. So anybody who hasn't seen it for a while, very entertaining movie, like flew by, very easy watch. But yeah, I don't know, I just found it interesting and relevant to a lot of the stuff that I talk about. Just that psychological. And in the next video that I already filmed, I talk a lot about being able to trust people, and like how the main character obviously trusted his girlfriend, but she was basically just the human trafficker who would go out and bring these people to the family so that they could basically steal their lives from them. Yeah, there's a lot I can relate to. I think a lot of people can relate to not knowing. I think it's more common than we think, never really knowing what people's true intentions are, which is sad. I go into more detail about trust, just how difficult it is. So I won't go deeper right now about it, but yeah, I don't know. It was the first movie I've watched in a while, and it just was one of those that gets you thinking. At the same time, it's just an entertaining movie. So anybody who hasn't seen it in a while, I recommend it. Yeah, I figured since I was talking about Get Out, I've wanted to talk about this other movie for a while, and then I recently heard somebody talk about a movie that I had forgotten I watched, and it was before all of this happened. But once I heard the name of it and remembered the movie, it immediately was like, that's interesting. But before I get to that one, I wanted to talk about Memento. So I've talked about Christopher Nolan and The Prestige, and I'm sure I'll talk about some of his other movies because he always has like a very thought-provoking stuff. But I wanted to talk about Memento for a minute. I don't think I've talked about it. If I have, I apologize. I know I've wanted to, but I don't think I went into detail about it. Yeah, definitely different in like the takeaway, but I find the takeaway to be fascinating nonetheless. For anybody who hasn't seen it, it's about a guy who actually kind of, now that I think about it, like other than the crow part and like the supernatural element of it, the storyline's very similar to The Crow, where this guy, his girlfriend got raped and murdered, and I guess in the process he had short-term memory loss, so like he can only remember stuff for like 15 minutes. So he remembers his life before everything, and then remembers like his girlfriend getting murdered, and now like he doesn't have the ability to remember from day to day or even hour to hour like what he's doing or what has happened since the accident. So he basically is on like a mission to find his wife's killer and get like revenge, seek out justice for his girlfriend or wife. I can't remember which one. It's been a while since I've watched the movie. But there ends up being the girl, is something Moss, the girl who was in The Matrix, and then Guy Pearce is the main character, and Joe Pantoliano is the cop, like the crooked cop who is helping him apparently find the guy who murdered his wife. But he has to like take photos and write notes on like Polaroids and then actually tattoo the super important stuff onto his body so he remembers like what's going on in his life. Because like his old life is completely destroyed and gone. So he just continuously has to try to remember what he's doing at any given time. So it's like self-narrated. So it's like the voice that you hear throughout the movie is his like internal dialogue. And he's basing everything that he takes notes on what other people tell him. So the girl from The Matrix is like taking advantage of him, and the dirty cop is like stealing from him. He's an easy target, you know. But he has a purpose. He's on a mission to find his wife's killer and avenge her death. So as long as he has this purpose, like he has a reason to live, basically, and like he basically every day is like the same thing of him forgetting and having to remind himself and trying to solve this mystery with like limited like capacity to do so. But it ends up that Joe Pantoliano, who's the cop, like finally tells him one day that like he already found the guy and killed him, and he's just on this manhunt day after day doing the same thing that he's already completed. And he actually tells him like how everybody just uses him and how he used them, and thinking like he's going to forget is not going to make a difference. So at that point, instead of like writing it down and knowing he already accomplished this mission, he actually makes a decision to lie to himself, and his new mission becomes like basically like seeking out justice for all the wrong that people had done to him, like taking advantage of him when he was an easy target, continuing to believe like he hadn't killed the guy and just lie to himself. I think he actually tells himself that the dirty cop who was using him was the murderer, so he ends up killing him. But it's very thought-provoking as far as like, it's shot in like a very cool way too, from like back to front, and the narration and everything. Hopefully nobody had plans of watching it who hasn't already watched it, and I just spoiled it for you guys. But it's been a while since I've watched it. I actually might look for it and watch it soon. But there's just the idea of, like, to an extent, we all do that. Lie to ourselves to give ourselves a greater purpose, or to avoid the reality that, like, what we're doing is meaningless, you know? I mean, now I actually have a legitimate purpose. Like, I've found what I'm meant to do. But for a very long time, I was lying to myself. It was easier to lie to myself, thinking that what I was doing mattered in the grand scheme of things. But I find a lot of people make a lot of decisions and would rather live the lie than to know the truth, and then kind of be uncertain of where you go from there, you know? I don't know. That is probably a terrible recap of that movie, since I haven't seen it for so long. I was trying to remember exactly the details of it, but for whatever reason, it has been in my head for quite some time. So, yeah, for anybody who hasn't seen it, I don't think I really spoiled too much. It's still definitely worth a watch. Or if you haven't seen it in a while, maybe watch it from a different point of view of that, like, really it has nothing to do with the memory loss at a certain point. It's like the idea of lying to ourselves to ease the pain that sometimes what we're actually doing is just wasting our own time and energy at something that doesn't even matter. It's already done in his case. Like, he already found the guy and killed him. But without that, like, he wouldn't know what to do. I feel like that's a lot of people, like, that fear of, if you're not doing the thing you're doing now, that you don't feel fulfilled doing, then what does it look like? It's Yeah, I definitely have to rewatch it. I feel like I'll have a much better take if I rewatch it, but wanted to at least mention it because it's a very good movie. And then the last movie that I just got reminded of, this will tie into the stuff I talk about, a lot of the CIA stuff and MK Ultra and mind control. It was a movie I never even heard about. I stumbled across it. I don't even remember when. I watched it. It didn't have like the greatest reviews and stuff, but I found it very entertaining. It was called American Ultra. It had like Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart and Connie Britton, Walter Goggins, and Topher Grace. So there's actually some elements of the Truman Show, but instead of like it being a movie, Jesse Eisenberg is like a stoner in West Virginia who has like these panic attacks and can't seem to like get his life together. It starts out with him and Kristen Stewart trying to like go on vacation, I think to Hawaii or something. He was planning on getting engaged, like proposing. And he's like in the bathroom throwing up and he just can't do it. He can't get on the plane. He's having a panic attack. So he's basically just like stuck in this West Virginia town and working at the convenience store. And Connie Britton and Topher Grace are CIA agents. So I guess Connie Britton was his handler, I guess when he was a kid. I guess his parents died, if I recall, something like that. And so he was like a CIA operative or asset, the only surviving one from this operation. And Connie Britton got word that Topher Grace was going to send agents to kill him, I guess to erase any evidence that this operation ever existed. And Connie Britton decides to go rogue and go basically to wake him up, like, what's the word I'm looking for? To, I guess, like, whatever the code word is, like, talking about mind control and hypnotizing and stuff like that. Like, there was a saying that she said that was supposed to, like, ignite him, like, flash back to his training as, like, a CIA operative that he never knew he was. He just thought he was some random loser in West Virginia that had panic attacks. His parents died in a car accident, and Kristen Stewart was like the only person that cared about him. So obviously, like, all this crazy stuff starts happening, and he starts like remembering and having all these skills that he never knew that he had. Finds out he, I guess, is like part of this secret CIA operation. Ends up that, sorry if anybody planning on watching it at this point, I would say if you want to watch the movie, I guess stop listening. But ends up like Kristen Stewart was his, like an agent as well who was assigned to him. Ended up like falling in love with him. So he finds out like his entire life was not real and it was all fake. But she actually fell in love with him, and it was a fun movie, but at the same time, like, it deals again with mind control and the CIA and secret operations on people who didn't know they had people playing around with their mind. I talked about the GATE program doing these tests, and I believe being made to forget certain things that I was capable of. So when I heard this movie come up the other day, I hadn't been in that mindset when I originally watched it, but it kind of sparked something to be like, he was like very creative, like he was like making like a comic book or something that he thought was stupid and that wasn't any good, but like he had like all this like creativity and just was stuck because by design he was supposed to just stay in that place and be out of the way. But he went through life like thinking he was this loser. But the whole time he was manipulated and controlled. So you think back to MK Ultra and what I believe the whole GATE program and other operations that have gone on, makes you wonder how far-fetched is this stuff? How many people maybe have been hypnotized or under some sort of mind control? If you don't want to go to the magic and spiritual warfare stuff, you want to just stick to psychology. And I mean, this stuff is stuff they can certainly do. Hypnosis and being able to plant suggestion into our minds. If you don't believe that somebody's in a robe doing black magic, maybe it's not as far of a stretch to think that when we were younger, or even when you're older, sometimes just like some of these things that we were made to do, some of these standardized testing and things we went through, like that we thought we were doing one thing, that they, who knows what we really could have been put through, like making us forget real memories. You know, the Men in Black, I posted something about Men in Black, like how they make us forget. Like that whole movie was making people forget that they saw the aliens. I don't know. At this point, I think it's crazy not to think that that stuff exists. There's just too much. People just don't seem to react the way that they should to certain things. Like, there's so much madness and mayhem going on in the news that should have people way more outraged and interested than it does. Just comes and goes, like, keeps getting weirder and weirder. And it's like these blank stares, and people, it like doesn't even register at how absurd some of this stuff is. People just dismiss it as too weird to actually be true. Just to me, like, I've come to realize we haven't even scratched the surface of what's weird in this world. If we really knew what was going on, it would be hard to truly digest it, like, because it seems so outrageous, but I don't know. These, the stuff I talk about with the CIA and just like how they do business and stuff in the next video. Let's talk about trust. Like, I don't know how anybody has trust in any of the things that get said by these organizations or the government or any of it anymore. I think it's time to start giving the people the actual truth of what's happening and let us together figure out, like, how to fix it. I just don't see how things are ever going to get better allowing people to be sacrificed on the way that these people in power just continuously sacrifice human lives for financial gain, power, control, or just because they can. But yeah, I said I was going to make this a short video, almost 50 minutes already. I'll come back on tomorrow. I have some actual real topics. I can't believe I talked for almost 2 hours basically on a couple movies and it's about trust in the CIA, but yeah, this stuff just, the more research that I do, the more documents that I read, the more patterns that I see, and then just trusting my intuition of like what feels like the truth versus what doesn't. It's overwhelming to me, just how far off course we've gotten. And it's very concerning that we are on a very slippery slope on, if things don't change soon, how bad some of this stuff could get. So, yeah, I'm going to keep talking about it. As much as a lot of people out there wish I wouldn't. Just, like, I know my devices have been compromised for the longest time, and that definitely my electronics and trying to upload the stuff and the way to get more views and stuff, like, I feel like they're trying to limit that stuff, but it is what it is. Eventually, if I keep talking, the right people will see it. So anyway, yeah, we'll be back on tomorrow. I'll have some more stories and paintings for you guys. But yeah, hope everybody has a good night. Talk to you guys soon. Love you all.